Okay, what's up everyone, and welcome to an all-new episode of State of the League presented by Capital One. It's been a while since we sat down and delivered a proper State of the League. So on this episode, I'm gonna reflect on season 1, also talk about what's forthcoming to season 2. And by the way, October 22nd, just a month ago, was PLL Day. We've been public for now well over a year. Let's start with how we ended the season. On September 21st, we were in Philadelphia at Talon Energy Park for a championship game between the Whips and the Woods, and there were over 12,500 people there. It was an amazing atmosphere. It came down to the wire, where Matt Rambo scored the game-tying and game-winning goal in overtime, lifting the cup for the first time. The Whipsnakes Lacrosse Club, your PLL champions. We haven't called it a cup until right now, because the Whipsnakes kind of treated our championship trophy as a cup by pouring the then sponsor Michelob Ultra beer into the cup and drinking it after the game. But they wore the crown, as the season moniker was Battle for the Crown, and that was the Whipsnakes. Let's talk about season 2. On September 23rd, when our PLL front office got back to our headquarters here in LA, we had our first all-hands meeting, and Mike Rabel, my brother, co-founder and CEO, dubbed this off-season our on-season, which means as a front office, we're going to work across media, sponsors, tickets, merchandise, PLL Academy, and here are a couple of updates. On the media side, we launched a new franchise called The Fast Break, hosted by RJ Kaminsky and Lisa Redman. In Q1 2020, we're going to roll out PLL Audio, which is going to be a podcast series where we host a number of scripted and unscripted shows. That's gonna be awesome. On the corporate sponsorship business development front, we have a couple of key sponsors who are coming in for 2020. We'll be announcing that soon. Merchandise has been a takeover, heading in from Black Friday to Cyber Monday, and your holiday gifts brought to you by the PLL. On the youth front, we've gotten in front of over 10,000 players and family members through a series of PLL academies, whether it's our player clinics, our player tours, Rabel Overnight, or other events that we're dropping in a market near you. And finally, tickets. We have decided to bring it entirely in-house, so we've built out a full team led by Mick Davis, who was running PLL Academy. He has now shifted over to leading our ticket sales efforts, both locally, both nationally, from a direct-to-consumer and direct-to-business. So if you see Mick Davis email you, be sure to respond, and we hope to see you at one of our 2020 games, which we'll be announcing our schedule very soon. So that's a lot. Let me talk about an even bigger thing that we rolled out this October. If you were one of our fans that watched the championship game on NBC, you saw the post-game celebration and then comments that I gave teasing the expansion to a 7th lacrosse club.
And when you look at signal of market growth, you talk about expansion.
So we looked at all of the core tenets and departments across our business as they grow and overachieve expectations. As you look at each of you and the fan base for the PLL continuing to grow, and our players and coaches, outside interest, new players. There's a really talented college lacrosse draft coming out in 2020. It was time. So we formally announced on Barstool's Pardon My Take podcast that we were rolling out 2020 with a 7th lacrosse club.
Breaking news. This is actually the biggest breaking news we've ever had because it's real breaking news.
And so you take that excitement and you add onto it that in the coming weeks, we will be announcing that club name and its identity. So make sure you pay attention to all of our social platforms and potentially Barstool's Pardon My Take, as Big Cat and PFT are interested in potentially being owners of that team. Well, sort of. Make sure you listen to the podcast. And of course, from an expansion club begins an entirely new process, from having an expansion draft to having an entry draft and then our college draft. So there are 3 drafts this offseason. Now here are the high-level details of our expansion draft. The original 6 clubs can retain 10 players plus a goalie. For the non-retained players, they go into the expansion draft, of which the 7th lacrosse club can select up to 4 players per club, taking 18 total players, which will comprise the core of the 7th lacrosse club. They'll then get access to the entry draft, which are non-PLL professionals coming over to play in the 2020 season, and then the college draft. By then, we'll be in training camp, and we'll do a few other State of the Leagues to break it up. Now, before we go, I want to touch on the sport globally. let's call it international lacrosse, and the path to the Olympics in LA 2028. Just this past month, the PLL worked with an organization called Lacrosse, which is based in Tokyo, Japan, and we sent 18 of our PLL All-Stars over to Japan to not only work with the youth lacrosse players there, introduce the sport to new people. We visited local elementary schools and taught lacrosse during their PE programs, and then we also scrimmaged the Japanese All-Stars. Those highlights and more are on the PLL's YouTube channel. I encourage you to check them out. But more broadly speaking, our mission at the PLL is to not only build the sport professionally and help enhance our players' experiences, but also grow the fan base of lacrosse from participants to viewers. And what that means is beyond the scope of the US and Canada, we want to push this game internationally. And we're working locally, not only with LA 2028 about lacrosse being included in the Olympics in the future, but we're also working with World Lacrosse, formerly known as the FIL, in partnership to not only grow the game internationally, but to push new media and send our players into those markets. This game will grow materially by being included in the Olympics. And it's part of our process to ensure that we continue to push the ball down the field so that our players one day will be playing in the Olympics and that the sport will grow by being in front of over 4 billion people by being played in the Olympics. The last thing, we're hiring. So if you want to be a part of this and other projects from all the departments we have in-house, make sure you click on the link below to get job descriptions that are currently in the market. We'd love to work with you, and I will be a part of those interviews. So if you're one of them, I'll talk to you soon. That's it. I'm glad to be back in this chair, giving another and all new episode of State of the League presented by Capital One. Thanks for tuning in.